Hola chicos, still no COVID results to share with you, so I want to start the day by reading a primary source document, which you might remember means a document that comes from history. And in this case, it comes from the period of history that we're studying, the American Revolution. Let's take a look. So this is a newspaper article, and I want you to follow along while I read it. And there's a goofy little trick you need to know in order to be able to read this newspaper article. It's that they have like a weird key for the letter S. So a lot of the S's look like the letter F, but they're not the letter F, they're the letter S. You'll see what I mean in a second. Here we go. Run away from the, not subscriber, run away from the subscriber. In Albemarle, a mulatto slave, not Flav, called Sandy, about 35 years of age. His stature is rather low, inclining to corpulence, and his complexion light. He is a shoemaker by trade, in which he uses his left hand principally, can do coarse carpenter's work, and is something of a, gotta be careful here, horse jockey. He is greatly addicted to drink, and when drunk is insolent and disorderly. In his conversation he swears much, like me, and his behavior is artful and knavish. He took with him a white, careful, horse, much seared with traces, of which it is expected he will endeavor to dispose. He also carried his shoemaker tools, and will probably endeavor to get employment that way. Whoever conveys the said slave to me in Albemarle shall have 40 shillings reward if taken up with the country, 4 pounds if elsewhere within the colony, and 10 pounds in any other colony. What does this primary source tell us? Well, it's pretty clear. This is an ad put in a newspaper by a Revolutionary era person looking for their runaway slave named Sandy. Let's start with what wouldn't surprise you about this newspaper ad. What wouldn't surprise you is that you already know that slavery was a thing in American history. It was an ugly and shameful and horrible thing, but it was a thing nonetheless. But there is something about this article that might surprise you, other than the fact that people were able to make it through these newspaper articles in spite of all those weird S's. And that's who wrote it. My niece won't stop crying. So without further ado, the author of this newspaper ad is Thomas Jefferson. And why might this surprise you? Think about it. Think about it. This might surprise you because this is the guy who wrote this. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. Yet this guy owned other humans. That's not freedom or equality. What are we to make of this? This is the conundrum of the legacy of Thomas Jefferson. A guy who authored such a beautiful expression of some of the revolutionary ideals that founded this country, but was also a supporter and proponent of an institution that could not have been more antithetical or offensive to those founding ideals. And this tells us something about our big question too. How revolutionary was the American Revolution? And the answer is clearly that more revolutionary for some than others. For guys like Thomas Jefferson, the American Revolution absolutely led to an increased sense of freedom. Freedom from Great Britain anyway, and definitely increased his political power. But for the people that Thomas Jefferson owned, they were no more free or equal than they had been under the British Crown, and might have actually been better off if in the war for American independence, the British had won. More on that later, but today I want to focus on Thomas Jefferson and what we are to make of this man's complicated legacy. A man who truly believed in the Enlightenment ideals he espoused from his pen, but who, to put it mildly, did not practice what he preached. Was he just a product of his time? a flawed man who, in spite of his support for slavery, should still be considered a revolutionary hero? Or was he, as the article that you're about to read today puts it, a monster? I look forward to hearing your thoughts.